Leon Byner's just arrived.
He is. And he's looking around as he always does.
Now, is Leon going to have a cup of tea, a glass of wine? What would he like?
A cup of tea.
A cup of tea? A cup of tea? A cup of tea?
A cup of tea's good.
I'd love a cup of tea.
Thank you.
How have you been?
I've been excellent.
Do you remember Digby Wolfe?
Yes. He was very popular.
Very, very popular.
Review 61.
That's right, yeah. But I think there were quite a few reviews. There was 61, 62.
61, 62 were the most popular.
Yeah.
It kind of had its time, and it was very big for its time.
Yeah.
And then it just sort of petered out.
Did you, were you tempted to go along to the 5K knees up the other day?
No.
What are they, Caroline, what do they call themselves? The rats?
Radio and TV survivors.
Radio, TV survivors, rats. Well, there were some wonderful memories there.
Oh, yeah. But you know what? I tend to, it's nice to reflect on them, but I'm a very forward-looking person.
Yes.
So I tend not to reminisce too much.
No, but I just think you can learn a lot from things gone by.
Lots of photos on the big screen of Leon.
Lots of photos on the big screen of Leon Byner.
Yeah.
Going back to...
it was a great time. Loved it.
Yeah. Were you there in Paul Thompson's day?
Yes. Yes.
That was when it was called, what, Life Station?
Yes.
Life Station, 5KA.
Yes. There was a time when everything was very environmental.
Yeah.
And the Life Station thing was part of that. It was part of that whole zeitgeist, I think. But yeah, it was pretty interesting. I tend to think, though, looking back, it took itself a little too seriously. You got to be a little bit realistic about media, and that we are a pastime to most people.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, for you and me, it's a business, and it's been a great business to be in.
Yeah.
But to the ordinary listener, it's not their be-all and end-all.
Oh, God, no. You're a public servant.
Yeah, sure.
If you serve the public well enough, they'll tune you in.
Absolutely. So I tend to not place too much credence on how important one is in the media, because there are other diversions which people have, cost of living, all that stuff.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah. So whilst I enjoy doing it and I love it, you got to kind of keep your perspective.
Yeah. What did you think of the ratings? They came out, I think, on Wednesday or Tuesday? Tuesday, yeah.
Well,
I used to hate ratings day. They were so...
Unless you get a pizza and a...
Oh, well...
They're sort of... We have 8 report cards a year. That's what they are.
Yes.
And sometimes the numbers are good and sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
But if you are on AM radio these days, you have to be compelling.
Yes.
You really... If you don't have something... If you don't have an act, if you like, you're in trouble. Because people have got to need you. And to make them need you, you've got to give them information, generally stuff that they can't get out of the paper. It's no good going on and regurgitating stuff that's available elsewhere.
Isn't it funny how people think that is good radio? They just get the morning newspaper, and the producers, not being critical of any particular producer, because I think they all sort of do it to some extent. There's the story about, I don't know, there's the story about the budget.
Yeah.
And then certain people are quoted in the paper, and what the producer does is to go and just line up the same people that are quoted in the paper to get them to come on the program and say the same thing.
I use the paper to work out either two things: what to avoid, because it's already out there, or what is the real story behind what is printed. And it's amazing how many times I did that, and we ended up with a totally different perspective that was actually pretty compelling.
When you think about radio's role in the scheme of things, its great claim to fame is, of course, its immediacy.
Yes,
we
absolutely.
are immediate. Newspapers, however, are 12 hours old. They've got to be. Or more.
Or more.
Yeah. The
And-
stories could be weeks old,
Yeah.
and they've been spiked, and they eventually find their way to the top of the list.
See, I must say that having worked with different producers over the years, I would look at the paper, and they would, and I'd say, well, hang on, there's nothing more to add to this.
You got to take it another.
Yeah. Whereas, in certain circumstances, you think, hang on, that's not the real story.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, there's a lot of instances where that was the case.
Yeah. I like the idea of being able to say, okay, well, that's the story. It's in the paper.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Sure.
But how to take it a step further, develop it.
Yeah.
And then the ideal thing is, of course, that what you're doing in your program
Yes.
is making the paper tomorrow.
Yes. My slogan I use to myself is innovate, don't regurgitate.
Yeah.
And I've stuck to that for a long time, and I've got to say it served me well most of the time.
Yeah. Producers are very, very important.
Oh, yeah.
You get a good producer, you can really make even a sort of second-class broadcaster reasonably presentable.
Yes, you can.
A good producer is a...
Well, I had the same one for over 2 decades.
How did you come by Tammy?
Oh, I inherited her.
She was the producer of the show when you took it over?
Well, yeah. She was actually doing another shift. And she wanted a challenge, and I said, well, working with me will be one.
Are you hard to work with?
No.
No, I've never known you to be
I'm not hard to
with.
work with. I think it's fair to say that I'm demanding, but I have one little trick, and I always say to people working with me, I will demand nothing more of you than I demand of me.
Yeah, that's a good
And
slogan.
Yep, and I stick to that.
Where do you think radio is going? It can't sort of get stuck in aspic. It's a living, evolving, moving thing.
Yep.
So where do you think it's going? Hang on. Put your headphones on.
Sure.
And I'll take this call. Hello? Oh dear, don't tell me the phone's playing up. Hello? I hate it when it does that.
Oh, well.
I hate it when it does that. Never mind. Where do you think it's going? What's going to be the next big thing?
In radio?
Yeah. Tony, the phone went...
Take that call?
I tried.
The next big thing will be the caller who drops something controversial that we haven't heard yet.
Yeah.
Because I've had a bit of that.
Yeah, but it's a bit of a lucky dip, and you don't really know if
it can be.
If what's being...
It can be, but the community are a very good conduit to what's going on. And often they will tell you something that's happened to them or that they've heard, and I'll just say, that's interesting to know. Can you give my producer a little bit more info if you've got any, and we'll follow it. But that's normally the way I work it.
Yeah.
But often they've got good stuff.
It's sort of a double-edged sword, I suppose. But I love regular callers. I mean, they become regular contributors. They're part of the broadcasting family of that program. But other people say, "Oh no! You should have different, lots of different callers."
You have both.
Well, yes, you have both.
You have both. It's part of the tapestry. It's like radio is a tapestry. It just puts colour and depth
and texture.
Yeah.
I sort of think of it too as strangely as a little like fried rice. And that fried rice, I mean, rice is pretty dull, pretty boring. But the ingredients...
But you can do a lot with it.
You can do a lot with it. You can cut up a bit of cabanossi, and there's some bacon and some egg.
Yes.
And before you know where you are, you've got a very tasty, interesting dish.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what a radio program should be. Were you ever tempted to ditch radio and go to television?
No.
But you did do all those Hollywood things.
Oh, yes. But that was as much radio as it was TV.
Yeah.
But I had a view that each had its place and utilised both. And I did.
Yeah.
And I did.
Which one were you more comfortable with?
Well, probably radio, because that was my first love.
Yeah.
But it was Jackie Collins who said to me, you need to film these. I remember going to see her for the first time, and then I had a lot to do with her.
She was a very, very nice lady.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, she rented a bungalow and brought all these people along to meet me. Many of them were very high-profile people.
Yeah.
And I was quite blown away by the whole thing.
Isn't it interesting how really big stars
Yeah.
are enormously generous?
Yes.
You know, they will go out of their way to be supportive and give you a helping hand.
Yeah, I found that, and I was very lucky.
Without doubt.
Yeah.
The bigger and the people you've talked to over the years.
Yeah.
You
Mel Brooks.
Yeah, drop some names.
Bob Hope.
Bob Hope, yes, he's great. Yeah.
He
was great.
He was a fascinating bloke.
Yeah.
There's been so many.
Yeah.
Jackie Collins and
That's
Joan.
Jackie and Joan. Yeah.
I nearly managed to get them together, but they had this rule that they would not appear together, and I thought, gee, it'd be good to get them. So,
well, Jackie was the author, wasn't she?
Yeah,
she was the. Yeah.
But I got the closest I got was one after the other.
Not many men can say that.
Yes. In a broadcasting sense, of course.
Yeah.
And I've got to say that it was their own particular family rule that they wouldn't do stuff together, but they had a lot to offer. Very different people.
Yes.
Very charming, smart, and really perceptive.
Yeah. And they sort of knew how to work the room.
Yes.
They knew what we wanted, which
Yes.
was a good, spirited, interesting interview.
Yeah.
And they were either flogging a book, or they were flogging a new movie, or a new television show, or whatever.
Unbeknownst to me,
Quid pro quo.
When I started doing this stuff, Jackie Collins particularly was calling up people, unbeknownst to me, quite well known.
Yeah.
Come and talk to this guy. He's not your typical interviewer.
Yeah.
You'll get something out of it. And gee, that opened a lot of doors. It was amazing.
And the funny thing is that the bigger they are, the nicer they are.
Yes, that's true.
It's only the would-be's, if they could be's, that give you a hard time.
Oh, you get that a little bit. I remember Michael J. Fox was one.
What, trouble?
No. His agent was an Australian guy called Paul Baker.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Aussie.
Yeah.
There actually are a few Australians in Hollywood who are people managers, and they're quite good. They're good at it.
Yeah.
Very good at it.
Have you ever had a manager?
No.
I don't think I have either, from memory.
Oh, yes, you have.
Who? You? I suppose. Hello?
Good morning, Jeremy.
John, you tried to call me before, did you?
I did try and call you before.
Well, the phone was playing up. I'm sorry about that.
That's all right.
I've got
Not a
Leon
problem.
Byner with me.
Leon Byner, what a champion.
Yep. John says you're a champion.
Thanks.
What did you think of the leader of the opposition? Apparently he's tried to contact the ambulance union to have a discussion over the issues which cost the Liberal Party the election last time, and he's now written a letter for the third time trying to encourage the head of the ambulance union to come and have a conversation with him.
Well, my observation would be the ambulance union, irrespective of what their natural affinity for who they vote for is, it would be wise for them to have good, cordial relationships.
Get on with everybody.
Because you never know who's going to be in government. And I look, it would be no secret to say that if you alienate, you can't afford to alienate if you run a service that relies on government support, be it even only not necessarily financially, but it's good to keep peace with both sides, to keep a nice, civil, cordial, open relationship.
Yeah.
That's the way I've seen things.
Well,
those who do prosper.
In this business, John, as you would know as a listener, you've got to have access to both sides of politics, and even some sides of politics with whom you are in disagreement philosophically, but you have to have access, otherwise you're not doing the right thing by your listeners.
Exactly, and I just find it incredible that we know the fuss that they kicked up at the last election, and it cost.
They turned every ambulance into a travelling billboard for Labor.
Yep, and to me, I think I agree with what Leon said. You've got to open both sides and do the cordial thing, go and have a chat.
But what about the leader of the opposition, David Spears? I mean, I say openly and publicly, I think he's a great disappointment. I can't see him being successful for the Liberal Party.
There are people in the Liberal Party who would be much better at explaining and communicating.
Yes, totally agree.
The ideals that they represent. And if you don't have that at the front, you're in trouble. And the Liberals' big problem locally is that there are people internally who could do it, but they're not there to do it. We've got somebody, nice bloke as he is, he doesn't cut through.
No, it doesn't come across.
Not cut through.
No, I totally agree. But it's like putting a team of radio people together, or any sort of team. You've got the people behind the choosing, the selecting. They've got to have an eye for talent.
Yeah.
Put the round peg in the round hole and the square peg in the square hole. If you know what you're doing, it's not hard.
Yeah, I agree with you. He comes. And I suppose this is why he comes across a bit soft, David Spears. That's, I'm not saying that he hasn't got the academic mind to
I would put it another way. I don't know that he cuts through.
Yeah.
I think, nice enough bloke, but that doesn't count when you are in that game.
Yes.
You've got to be able to sell ideas, and you've got to be able to do it with compulsion. And you see, if you don't show a lot of emotion and spirit in what you say, the people listening, because by the time it gets to your ears, it loses a bit of that anyway. So you've got to be pretty compelling in order to cut through.
John, what did you think? I take it you've heard about this. Well, it started out as a $300,000 speechwriter, and that morphed into the real truth, which was $602,000 for a 2-year contract to write Bill Shorten's words.
Not impressed with that, Jeremy.
Well, they have, writers, script writers and speech writers within the public service on tap. So why would you feel the necessity to go out there and pay this outrageous amount of money? What would make that person so good that he would be paid $300,000 a year? I mean, how many speeches would Bill make in a year?
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree with you. To me, it is. It's like a job for someone that he's trying to look after, as far as I can see.
Well, I don't let him look after who he wants to look after, but pay him out of his pocket.
Yeah.
Not my pocket.
Yes, exactly. I'll tell you, I'll go, but lovely to hear your voice again, Leon.
No problem.
It's a pity you're not on radio, and the same as the bloke that's running the show right now. He should be there too. We miss you. That's
Thank you.
Plain and simple as it can be.
Oh, bless your heart, John.
Blokes with good hearts and good sound advice for us.
No,
thank you. Take care of the pair of you, and
no problem.
Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for the support. Thanks, John.
No worries. Bye-bye.
Leon Byner's a special guest. Les Ellicus is still with us. Bob Day is coming on in a short time. Stay with us. But the idea of a politician needing somebody to write his words anyway seems to me to be very strange. Why wouldn't you have people drawn to politics because they have, the gift of the gab, or they know they can debate.
Two great examples: Bob Hawke and John Howard.
Yes,
both could stand up and say stuff without notes. And do it with great passion.
I can't think of his name, but the bloke who used to write the scripts or the speeches for one of the prime ministers, I think it was probably... No, it'll come to me. Anyway, the idea of having somebody write the words is so weird that it's become acceptable.
Yeah.
Paul Keating it was.
Yeah. See, I think if you're half good at what you do and you actually believe in it, you don't need, you might want to use notes, one white paper of points just to keep you on track.
Yeah.
But over and above that, if you've got the idea of what you're doing and who you're representing and how and why.
And what you want to say.
You wouldn't need that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't need it.
Because you're trying to persuade people to either, one, vote for you, or to believe in you, or maybe come around to your way of thinking.
Sure.
I've got a book at home on John Kennedy, and I've always sort of really admired John Kennedy. And in this book, there are several pages of his handwritten, scrawled speeches with some of those fantastic lines like, think not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And it's a fascinating thing to look at this in his handwriting.
Yeah.
A scriptwriter wouldn't come up with that. Think of Churchill. Think of even Menzies.
Great oratory is a big inspirer.
Of course.
And when I was growing up as a kid, I used to admire great oratory. I used to listen to Orson Welles' speeches.
Ah, yes.
And I was always interested in hearing great talkers because over time, a lot of that stuff would rub off on you in your own way.
Yeah.
And I still do. I think great oratory is fantastic.
Yeah.
We don't see a lot of it these days or hear a lot of it, but it is inspiring when it's good.
Big influences in your life?
Oh.
Apart from Orson Welles?
Let's see.
What was his thing? The Mercury Theatre or something, wasn't it?
A lot of different influences because I used to listen to... there was a guy in Parliament once called Don Jessup.
Oh, I remember Don Jessup, indeed.
He was good.
Yes.
Menzies was good.
Yeah.
And a lot of those people... If you listen to them and they communicated, because I always say the less said, the better. So if you can do it very economically, using as few words as possible.
Yeah, true.
You admire that.
Yeah. What about Sir James Killen and Fred Daly? They were wonderful.
I knew them both. Fred Daly used to be a guest on a radio show I did when I was working in Canberra.
Very witty man.
He was hilarious.
They were from opposite sides of the world, opposite sides of politics, but they got on like a house on fire. And when they got going together, the repartee was just amazing.
Daly was a guy that didn't take himself too seriously, terribly smart, and very funny. Yeah. Very funny. And he used to come out with witticisms all the time, because I used to have him as a guest quite a lot.
Yeah.
And he was fantastic. He really was. We don't have those sort of people around anymore much.
But why? Why are the opposite to these people drawn to politics in the first place?
Yeah. It's all very regimented now. Factionalised. There was an informality that was there some time back. We've lost that to a large extent. And I think that's not a good thing because it brought a lot of things out that was said that as a listener you'd think, hey, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Whereas now everything has become compressed and stylised.
Yeah, well, it would sort the wheat out from the chaff, wouldn't it, if you did away with the script writers and speech writers, and you got up there and it would be sink or swim.
The great people, I've always found, and this would occur no matter whether it's Australia or elsewhere, who can stand up don't even need notes and speak from the heart.
Yes.
And you know what? The public react to that.
Yes.
They really do.
I was saying earlier that the real test of it all is if, in the old days at Speaker's Corner or the Domain in Sydney or wherever, you wanted to pull a crowd, you could pull that crowd, and sometimes they'd throw rotten tomatoes at you.
Yes.
And sometimes they were hostile. But the bottom line was you were on stage. You had your moment to convince them that you were God's gift to whatever you were trying to convince them of.
Yes.
And if you were worth your salt, you did.
Yeah. Well, there's a prevailing cynicism now, whereas if you want to motivate and cut through, you've really got to be good. You've really got to be good. Because people are surrounded by rhetoric.
Yeah.
And therefore it's suffered inflation and therefore devalued. So if you want to cut through, I've always found the less said the better. Make your point, make it as succinctly as possible, use as few words as possible, and you'll get to where you want to go.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Were you ever tempted to get into politics?
No.
I don't know what your politics would be.
Never tempted. Never tempted.
Yeah.
My problem is I'd be useless in a political party because I would take ideas from everywhere.
Yeah.
I wouldn't claim to have the franchise on
wisdom.
Just how to do things.
Yeah.
Because everybody has something to offer.
Yeah, well, here's sort of brand Labor and brand Liberal.
Yeah.
And they are kind of one-eyed, each of them, in seeing what the problems are and what the solutions are, when in actual fact, as you say, it could be an idea from this bloke and an idea from that bloke or that party, and it would make sense as long as it worked.
Yeah. I think because we tend to tribalise everything now, we lose a bit.
Yeah.
I think we lose a bit because nobody's got the franchise on all the best ideas.
No.
They exist everywhere.
Nobody owns wisdom.
No. Wisdom can't be franchised.
No.
It's just how you think and how you want to be open about how you think. And see, I love talking to people and hearing what they've got to say because you learn something every day.
Yeah.
Every single day you do.
It's a great job, radio or television, for people who are just naturally curious.
Yes.
Because you can, just with a microphone, somehow get or have the authority to ask almost anything of anyone.
Yes.
You know?
Yep.
I tell you what, a clipboard and a dust coat, that also works wonderfully well. If you stand in the street and you've got a clipboard and you're wearing a sort of a white coat, a medical thing, you stop people in the street and that clipboard gives you the authority to ask almost anything.
Well, I would have thought it's the white coat. I've got a sore throat. What can I do? What can I do for it?
As long as it wasn't one of those that do up at the back.
Yes, indeed.
I wonder if they still have straitjackets.
Oh, there are plenty out there. If you work in a government office, you've got a straitjacket on, whether you like it or not.
Yes. Did you hear that the public service, the federal public service, has grown by 36,000 people in the last 2.5 years?
We are dreadfully over-administered. But see...
What, 36,000 people?
Yeah, well, see, look, we don't need the scrutiny that often exists. Some things do, but I think the over-government that's going on is really the fact that as you grow the public sector, they have to be intrusive to justify their position.
Yes, I see.
And that in itself drives costs up.
Yeah.
For a country like Australia, we are over-governed, and by that I mean you've got local, state and federal, that's fine, but all the oversights, everybody trips into each other.
Yeah.
Everybody trips into each other because the demarcation lines are a little blurred.
Yeah.
And so you don't get great efficiency when you do that.
Well, which of the levels of government would you get rid of?
Oh, it's hard to know because they can all do a fine job. But, you know, for a country of 27 million people, I think we are over-governed and we have too many people
justifying their existence
with oversight.
Yeah.
You know, and what that does, it tends to enfeeble people.
Yeah.
And also it raises costs.
Yeah. We're only 26 or 27 million people.
Correct.
We've got too many bureaucrats and too many politicians. Yeah, Les, how many people have we got in Australia? Is it 27 million?
Yeah, 27.
27 million.
Yep.
Well, it makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense.
Jesus accomplished all he did with 12 apostles and no press secretary.
I think that's a great saying. I'll borrow that. Jesus accomplished everything that he did with 12 apostles and no press secretary.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful.
But it's true.
It is true.
Yeah.
It is true.
Yeah.
You know, I think the more bureaucrats you have, the more blame shifting you'll get.
At school I had a brilliant maths teacher at Wesley College.
Yeah.
His name was Mr. Field.
Yeah.
And he specialised in logic. And
a rare commodity, Leon.
But I can tell you what wisdom he had.
Yeah.
It transcended well past maths.
Yep.
But he was really good at explaining that you've got this very complicated formula up here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show you the steps to simplify it. So I'll turn that, which looks terribly complex, into this, which is very simple.
Yeah.
And life's like that.
Yeah.
Life is exactly that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that while I never understood Picasso very much, he could take a very complicated scene or picture and reduce it to a couple of lines.
Yep.
And you knew what he was drawing.
Yep.
So it does make sense to simplify. It does. Wonderful to see you, Leon.
Great to see you.
No, thank you for coming in. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
The great Leon Byner, ladies and gentlemen.